Alright everyone, so this is going to be the start of a video series in which I examine the presidential election swing states and lean states in the 2020 presidential election. So first we're going to be looking at overall trends. We're going to look at the last three presidential elections for each swing state, and then we're going to dive into the overall trends and demographics of the state to try to determine which candidate, whether Trump or Biden, these states will go to. So if you want to see more videos like that, please subscribe to the channel and like this video. And without further ado, let's begin. So we're going to start this off with the state of North Carolina. I filled out a county map of safe, lean, and likely counties for either candidate based on the last three presidential election results that we'll look at in a second. Naturally, Donald Trump has a large geographic dominance in the state of North Carolina with 72 states either in the safe, lean, or likely column for him, whereas Joe Biden has just 22. But don't let that fool you. Joe Biden still has a very good chance of winning North Carolina, especially in a best-case scenario, because the counties that he dominates in are the counties that are the most populous. If we look at the 2016 election results, Hillary Clinton got 46.2% of the vote from North Carolina to Trump's 49.8%. So a race within around 4 points, but keep in mind there's also third-party voters here as well. But overall, North Carolina is always going to get fairly close, but in the end, this would still be in the lean Republican column. But if we look at the states that the counties that Hillary Clinton won in, Wake County, Cumberland, Mecklenburg, and Greensboro here, she wins these areas overwhelmingly, and I think Biden most likely will too. And that's just how it tends to be in North Carolina with urban counties. So, of course, Trump lost Wake County, which is the most populous county in North Carolina, by 20 points. He also lost Durham County by a humongous margin. These two counties, by the way, Durham and Orange, I believe have high black populations and have historically gone to the Democrats for decades. So these are safe Democratic counties no matter what happens. Trump's not going to really do too well in these counties. But in Wake County, he could certainly improve his margins. Mecklenburg, believe it or not, George Bush almost won Mecklenburg back in, I believe, 2004. And he actually won Wake and Cumberland County. Of course, since then, those counties have gone more heavily to the Democrats, whereas the rural areas of the state have gone more heavily towards Republicans. George Bush won North Carolina by a near safe margin, I believe, in 2004. So the state has trended blue from 2004 to 2008, and then from 2008 onward, it's been trending more red, presidentially speaking. But Macomb County is another county that I think Trump could improve his margins in. Mecklenburg, unfortunately, just seems to be trending more Democrat, so for Trump, that's definitely some bad news for him. These rural counties are the counties that he really needs to win to hold on by a huge margin. He needs overwhelming rural turnout, and of course, Biden is going to be counting on black turnout in these more rural counties, but also in the urban centers of North Carolina. So if we look at the detailed map here by precinct, the same holds true. The cities, Biden will probably win overwhelmingly, just like Hillary did. And these were Durham and Orange County, like I said. These are super Democratic counties that Trump's never, ever, ever going to win. And no Republican has won these for decades. But in the suburbs, this is what kills Trump. Trump does really poorly in the suburbs, and that goes with nearly every state. Like Virginia. Virginia's is more urban and suburban than a state like North Carolina. North Carolina is more rural, which is probably the reason North Carolina is a red state and Virginia is a lean blue state. But we'll probably get to Virginia in the next video, and we'll talk about what the possible implications of that are. But North Carolina is a growing state, just like Virginia, and just like most of these swing states we're going to talk about. They usually happen in growing states that are getting more competitive, either one way or the other. But ultimately, the trends continue. This area up here that's like super blue, I think has a large black population, so that makes sense. And of course, we have the swing counties as well. So in 2012... Romney did a lot better in Wake County, only losing it by 10 points, which is very good for a Republican. But where he failed to gain a lot of steam was these rural counties that Trump won overwhelmingly in 2016. Romney, he did good in them, but not nearly as good as he could have done. He could have easily gotten 52 or 53% of the vote, with margins like this in Wake County. Mecklenburg, he didn't do so great. Cumberland, he did worse than Trump. But all these other counties, and if we look at the shifts here, which is over here, we can see which counties have shifted Democratic since the last election and Republican. So all the urban counties up here, with the exception of Cumberland County, have shifted more to the left. All of the rural counties, including those black counties up north in the northern eastern part of the state, are all trended red. So basically the entire state is trended red, minus New Hanover County, these more urban counties, and Macomb County, which is home to Asheville, which is a very liberal city. But if we look at the precinct map, Trump could definitely increase his margins outside of Asheville, but Asheville is kind of like a San Francisco within North Carolina. It's a very interesting city. It's kind of like the Austin of North Carolina, I guess. But again, looking at 2012, Romney did much better in the urban areas, but he lacked in the rural areas, but he still won the state by around 2 points. Now, these numbers are kind of off. These numbers probably weren't updated since after Election Day, because I think the margins were slightly different, but it was give or take around 2 points difference between Romney and Obama. And then, of course, we go back to 2008. Barack Obama actually won North Carolina. Again, I don't think it was actually by 49.9. I think it was 49.4 or something like that. The numbers are a little off. But essentially, North Carolina came down to the wire. Obama ultimately won. And if we look at the margins Obama won by, he overperformed in places like Wake County, in Mecklenburg, Cumberland. These are obviously the population centers. You have to do well in these counties. Because if we look at 2004, these are counties that went to George W. Bush. Wake County went to George W. Bush. Now, if we look at the numbers, George W. Bush got 177,000 votes. If we look at 2008, McCain actually got more than that. So Democratic turnout was really high. Turnout overall in 2008 was very high. The Bush administration was an utter disaster in the eyes of most people. The Great Recession did not help. And so turnout was extremely high. And as you can see, that high turnout was enough to basically turn a one swing county from 2004. This was effectively a swing county, actually probably lean red, but effectively a swing county with the nation's the state capital into a safe blue county. So turnout is going to be everything, and of course that's with every state. You know, turnout is big. If Republican turnout's high, Donald Trump's obviously going to win North Carolina. If Biden's turnout is high, he's going to win North Carolina. But how do I think the state realistically is going to play? Do I think it's going to trend more blue, or it's going to trend more red? My personal prediction is that North Carolina will go to Trump by a lean margin, anywhere from 3 to 5 points. Depending on how polling is, and I know the RCP average has Biden ahead barely in the state of North Carolina, but it also had Hillary up ahead in North Carolina. Polling tends to favor Democrats early on, and then as you get closer to the general election, it actually shows the Republicans' true chances in the state. Because overall, North Carolina is a lean Republican state. But if we look at the other results that came out of North Carolina, Roy Cooper also won his governor's race at the same time that Donald Trump carried the state. So what were the areas that Roy Cooper overperformed in? Well, he did better than Trump in Wake County. He basically got 60% of the vote out of Wake County. Sorry, he did better than Hillary. Cumberland was about the same. I think he might have actually done a little worse there. But ultimately, Pat McCrory lost a lot of support. The margins were slightly smaller in these more rural counties, and ultimately that gave the race to Roy Cooper for governor. And I think he'll win again, not by this close a margin. I think Roy Cooper's going to do a lot better, even though I think Trump's going to win the state. But ultimately, how I see North Carolina playing out, if North Carolina was to go to Biden, it would be by a margin like this. It would not be by a point or two. It would be very, very, very close. Although, as things are right now, I do not see that being the case at all. I think Trump's going to hold on to North Carolina. If I was a Democrat, I would not spend a lot of time campaigning here, because the areas you got to campaign in are the Rust Belt states. You need to campaign up here in the Rust Belt. Because North Carolina overall has consistently trended red. If you look at the popular vote for the state house and state assembly races from 2018, Republicans won that, I think, by around 3 or 4 points. I've had conflicting reports, though, that during the House of Representative races, if you take the total popular vote from all the Democratic, like all the districts as a whole, and you calculate the popular vote. There's some conflicting reports as to whether the Democrats actually won that if you count the 9th special election or not. And of course, that's up in the air. But even if that is the case, again, statewide officials do win as Democrats in North Carolina. But overall, I do see the state trending more Republican, as I just showed in the last 3 elections. It seems to be heading in that direction. Does that always mean it's going to be the case? No, I think in 2024 you could just put it as a toss-up. Of course, we won't know the political makeup of North Carolina. We won't know if North Carolina trends more red in the 2022 midterms. I mean, if Trump wins presidency, it's kind of assumed that the Republicans are kind of have a rough year in 2022, because that's just how politics works. In 2014, the Democrats got their asses handed to them. In 2022, Republicans could expect the same thing. Now, of course, the Democratic Party could implode after the loss of Joe Biden, but I really don't see that happening, because the Republicans, after 2012, got their act together and they won the Senate in 2014. So the Democrats very well could and probably will win the Senate in 2022. As a heads up, they'll probably win Pennsylvania and Wisconsin at least. But anyway, that's my prediction for North Carolina. I think Trump will get around 51% of the vote in North Carolina. 50 is kind of on the low side, but I think Joe Biden is uniquely weak in this case because of his cognitive decline and the fact that the enthusiasm gap heavily favors Donald Trump. And I think you'll have a lot of voters coming out from rural and suburban North Carolina to come out for him. So I think he'll win 51% of the vote here to Joe Biden's 47. That's my prediction. I think Donald Trump will win the state by around 4 or 5 points. He'll improve probably slightly over his 2016 margins, but I think in 2020, North Carolina is really not in play yet for the Democrats. But fortunately for you, 2024 is completely up in the air. So if Trump's second term turns out to be abysmal or something like that, North Carolina could certainly be in play. But again, 2022, only the future really knows. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this in-depth breakdown. I'll do this with every swing and lean state in 2020, so if you'd like to see that, please, again, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and yeah, ultimately, I see North Carolina going to Trump by around 5 points, but I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments below, and I hope to see you in the next video.